In January, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad threatened to abandon a railway project backed by China. After months of negotiations, his government has convinced Beijing to agree to lower the cost of building the East Coast Rail link from $16 to $11 billion.
The reduced amount is still being negotiated with China Exim Bank, and we foresee that this will result in lessening the financial burden of the government in terms of the principal repayment amount.
Expected to be completed in 2026, the revised railway line will be 648 kilometers long, slightly shorter than the initial route. The double-track passenger and freight train will run through 5 states, one more than the originally planned. It's the biggest project under China's Belt and Road Initiative in Southeast Asia, linking Malaysia's east coast on the South China Sea with the busy waterway of the Malacca Strait. Critics have labelled the Belt and Road project as part of China's so-called debt trap diplomacy, where Beijing lends huge sums of money to debt-laden countries for infrastructure projects and then seizes valuable assets when they fail to pay up. Last year, Sri Lanka had to hand over one of its ports after it fell behind on Chinese loan repayments. But Malaysia has opted for shared ownership through its Malaysia Rail Link and the state-owned China Communications Construction Company.
CCCC has agreed to participate in the operation and maintenance of ECRL through a 50-50 joint venture company between MRL and the CCCC. This arrangement will ease the financial burden on Malaysia, which previously was to bear the entire cost of the operation and maintenance.
Now that construction has received the green light, Malaysia hopes the financial risk will pay off in the long run. Laila Humairah, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Clare Rewcastle Brown, who's in London. She's an investigative journalist and the founder of the Sarawak Report. Welcome back to Money Talks, Clare. Your publication was the first to raise some very serious questions about this controversial and expensive project. What did you uncover?
Well, this sort of Belt and Road project found itself at the heart in 2016 of the internationally known 1MDB scandal involving Malaysia, which was a surprise. But how it all happened was that July 2016, I, in fact, got sent an anonymous piece of information, a tip-off to my website. And that consisted of an extraordinary document about this project. It showed that there'd been a secret arrangement between the government and China to boost the cost of this project, which up till then had been projected at being 30 billion ringgit, give or take. This now boosted it to over 60 billion ringgit. And there was an addendum, an appendix explaining where that extra money was going to. It wasn't going to increase costs of the project. This was to cover up an attempt by Prime Minister Najib, according to the document, to hide the $6.5 billion and associated interest costs that he had run up by borrowing this money from 1MDB that was then misspent. It was an extraordinary document, and I published it. This was a month after the DOJ had validated the scandal and shown a lot of the money trails relating to 1MDB. And you know, I got a lot of criticism. I was told it wasn't true. But then in November, Najib duly went to China, and all the details that I had published from that document were pretty much, you know, signed up to between the two countries, including that extraordinary $65 billion refinancing of it.
Yes, as you say, I mean, it's a huge discrepancy. So it's no wonder that the new Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, vowed to scrap it. But now he's giving it the green light. Do you think this is the right move for Malaysia?
Well, I think there were huge misgivings about this mega project. Mega projects funded by China have caused problems all over Malaysia, including the notorious Bakun Dam, which was finally completed, but caused endless problems in the 90s and is of dubious advantage to the state of Sarawak. And this looked like being another dubious mega project. I think the new government came in pretty much saying they didn't see why they needed it. They were sure that it would never, ever, make back the money that was invested in terms of people using the railway. Obviously, it's of interest to China strategically, but Malaysians in the new administration were saying they couldn't see the advantage to Malaysia. However, there was a big hitch. Najib obviously was desperate to sign up to this project that was going to apparently hide this missing money from 1MDB, and had agreed to a number of really, pernicious clauses from the part of Malaysia, including a penalty clause of about $5 billion, 21 million ringgit, if Malaysia was to cancel the project. So instead, I think this government was forced to renegotiate it. And they've not done too badly, actually. They've knocked a lot off the price, and the terms are much more advantageous than they were to Malaysia.
So in the wake of these negotiations that, as you say, has brought down the price by around a third and renegotiated other terms, do you think Malaysia is no longer in danger of falling into a debt trap, which is what Mahathir was worried about in the first place?
Well, yes. I mean, it seems a lot more comfortable about the impact that this particular project is going to have on Malaysia. I mean, this new government took up a chaotic financial situation, largely driven by some of the policies of the previous administration, reckless borrowing, reckless pilfering, and it's been a very, very worrying situation that's impacted on the economy without doubt. I think they feel much more comfortable that they've managed to get $1 billion. They had to put up $3 billion under the old contract. To the company, the Chinese company CCCC, as a sort of deposit up front for the project. And they've got $1 billion back on that. And they've also crucially refashioned this as a joint venture. So any things that go wrong going forward in the operation of the railway, 50% of that will be the onus of the Chinese company. So a lot of the burdens, threats have been removed, but it's certainly not a perfect situation for Malaysia. They didn't want to inherit this one.
OK, Clare Rewcastle Brown, always fascinating to get your thoughts. Thank you again for joining us on Money Talks.